Hello, everyone, and welcome to the most recent Cantata development stream. Today is July. My water is blocking my clock. July 12th, 2022, and I am joined by. I guess I'm Kyle Cookstell. Sorry, leader of After School and working on Cantata, and I'm joined, as always, with Rogue. Yeah.
Okay, we're here. I'm Rogue Fong. I'm a gameplay developer here at After School working on Cantata.
Yay. And today we have one of the newest members of the team, Lottie, our community manager, is currently on voice. Lottie, if you want to say hello.
Hello. How's it going? I'm Lottie. Hi.
So today we are going to talk a little bit about some stuff that's like going on in the game and going on in Cantata, and then we're going to preview some new stuff that's coming into the game as part of early access. But then also what we want to do for this stream is kind of as we've done before, have people feel like it's a place to ask questions about stuff that's going on or stuff they've seen. I know there's been like a lot of activity in the Discord kind of in the past few weeks, which is people asking questions and just seeing what's going on. We're going to review I guess we're not going to necessarily review direct Discord questions, but I think that if people have stuff that they mentioned in the Discord that they want to talk about again, feel free to put that stuff in the chat and we can talk about it. To start, what I'm going to basically do is just actually go through and start kind of stepping through chapter 3 in the game right now, just to kind of give us a little something to look at. But then we can also, just start talking about Cantata.
Yeah. And so many people have tried it on the Steam Deck. I'm really impressed.
Yes.
I'm so happy it's getting a lot of Steam Deck love.
Yeah, that's true. So one of the most recent patches that we did for, sorry, I just realized my game's not making any noise.
No.
There we go. There's that music that I love. A lot of people, we were also kind of surprised actually how many people tried the game on the Steam Deck kind of initially, and we're kind of expecting it to work, and then it worked okay. We don't have any sort of controller input, so it's a lot of like touchscreen stuff and like moving a cursor around. But I did implement this ability for this menu, the pause menu, to actually now properly scale with the Steam Deck, or like basically screen size. So before, there was an issue where if you opened up the pause menu, the screen would get bigger and you weren't able to actually access these settings. Now it properly scales to Steam Deck resolution. So if you have a Steam Deck, Cantata does work on Steam Deck. And some people are already kind of playing it like on the couch in the Discord, which has been great. And then it actually shout out to, I forget their name. I don't even know if they'd want me to say it, but someone in the Discord is actually sending us a Steam Deck to like better make Cantata work for it. So I don't know if you're watching the stream. I can say your name if you want me to, if you pop in the chat, but to that person, thank you because we're basically going to be able to have an actual development machine. So that's been great.
Yeah. I think worth saying is Foster did mention that Cantata on Steam Deck is channeling peak advanced words on the Game Boy Advance energy.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's like 100% true. I'm going to walk through our UI settings real fast. I want to make the match a little bit bigger. There we go. For those of you who don't know or just tuning in to the game, Cantata is a character-driven tactical strategy game set in a sci-fi world. I'm currently playing on Chapter 3 of our campaign. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are out in early access. And I'm playing as the machines right now, and specifically I'm playing as 10 Crowns, who is this kind of like sentient combination of machine intelligences. Let's see, I need to explore my surroundings, so I want to just go over here. And then I need to make sure I survive, then I need to build a drill. So maybe I want to build a... I'll go ahead and build a drill. So this will mine and give me some resources. So do that. The drill is coming
Something
Good,
I love about Chapter 3 is just the music is so...
I love the music.
So different.
Yeah.
It's so vibey.
Yeah, I love
spent all my time on Chapter 3.
I do a lot of
beats
testing in this
to-
chapter.
Yes. Top 5 beats to build a drill too.
Yes. Online. Always online. Well,
Yeah,
Sometimes
he's
they're
just
exploring a
he's
little
just 10 little robots in a trench coat pretending to be one big robot.
bit. Yeah,
need
some
to
of
be
the
a certain height.
the story for 10 Crowns is definitely like 10 Crowns is kind of the first machine or one of the first machines that gets this like spirit of like sentience. And so it's kind of like this imperfect robot because there's all these other robots that like came together. Which is kind of why they have only 3 legs. It's just not a
I
great way
think
to
he's
walk.
perfect. I'm sure his
is
mum thinks
perfect.
he's very handsome.
Yeah.
I love their dialogue too when you get to see the different like thoughts and intelligences and the different brackets, and it's written
Yeah.
very well.
Let's see. I already moved. I guess I could surge. I don't know if I want to surge. I need
Look
to
at
build
those
this-
cherubim
this building.
profile.
Oh yeah, those art. Yeah. Shout out to Artem again, just crushing it with all the character art. So good. And the builder drones too. Let's see. I'm gonna end my turn. I don't have much else I can do. Some things that we fixed in recent builds. If you're following us on Steam, we post the patch notes both in the Discord and inside this like Steam announcements. And one of the things that we most recently fixed is actually at the very end of this chapter. The chapter like wasn't completing. There was this weird bug with the scripting stuff. That's completed now. So if in the past you tried to play chapter 3 and it ended at the end and kind of like seemed like it broke, it's because it did break, and we've since fixed that. This chapter is still a little slow on like AI turns because there's a lot of stuff happening on the map, and we're kind of like working on that too right now. But let's see. Keep moving 10 crowns.
The feedback has been incredible. Is the feedback buttons still work, or did we disable it?
The feedback buttons do still work. I'll finish this dialogue for a second. So this is Vashti, the commander of the machine army, also known as the Unified Spirit. 10 Crowns has brought Vashti and her army to this abandoned colony planet called Shoal, and is kind of confused about what 10 Crowns is trying to do on this planet. 10 Crowns is like not totally there, or it's 10 different voices and minds trying to speak at the same time. So it can be kind of hard to understand what 10 Crowns is getting at. So Vashti here expressing some, I don't know, betting all of our lives on a few alien plants, on a sound you heard in the middle of the void. So 10 Crowns is
10
kind
Crowns
of... Yeah, go ahead.
doing like a mental exercise with Vashti, drilling in their point, why they need to take such a big chance.
So we can see there's some other trees nearby. We still don't really know what they are. But Vashti says, let's go get them, because Tin Crown says we need to do this.
Love that little bit of dialogue right there with all the different understoods.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One thing I think people don't necessarily know, that I think people experience it but don't realize it, is that Cantata actually has a lot of like dynamic music happening. So if you've played the game, you might have heard this a little bit in the past. Also, shout out to Tubes. Sorry, I just saw that you joined the chat. Tubes is if you've seen any of the faction guides floating around on like Twitter or social media, Tubes is a person who is just like making these amazing like faction tech trees and stuff, kind of just to share, which have been super nice. Thank you, Tubes, for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Doing way better of a job than I did.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna talk music thing real fast. So Cantata has we have our general background music, but then also, as you might have heard there's different music sometimes for different dialogue, but then every map also has like its own kind of, we call it conflict music, which is basically if you're in conflict with an enemy, the music will actually shift. So if you listen right now, which actually looks it's a little quiet, I'm gonna pump that up a little bit. It's kind of more chill. I mean, it's still mysterious, but once I go over here and actually encounter these enemies, you'll hear a little shift, maybe. And there you go. So it's a little bit more like upbeat. It's very subtle. It's not going to be like, you're fighting now. But then when you kind of shift back over to another area, it'll kind of go back to the calm. So a lot of kind of cool stuff. Like it's all, and also there's other areas of the map in general that also have their own specific sounds when you're kind of looking at them. So the whole map has got this kind of really nice, like thematic audio layer that exists on the whole thing that you might not notice, but you experience the effects of that, which has been really great.
Yeah.
Also, what's up,
It's definitely
Patrick, joining the chat?
Yeah. It's something that you feel.
You feel it. You do feel it. All right, so I need to build something here. Let's build, what can I build? Alchemist, Animator, or Thinker. So I know I kind of want to, let's see. So I want to go to this tree over here. So I'm going to, I can build something over here. Oh, I need some vision. So maybe I need to build another cherubim first. Hold it down at the fort. I'm out of AP, but I think I have enough to continue moving. I'd already moved these. Oh,
Looks like
also,
it, yeah.
one thing that you can do that we added kind of, I think this was like one of the first patches, but if you weren't paying attention to the patch notes, you might have missed. You can press E, and when you press the E key, you can actually see these little easy kind of mini, we call them mini UIs for units that allow you to see the kind of status of a unit at a glance. So I can see here that because these movement arrows are dimmed, these units have already moved. This one can't move. These can move. These can't move, but they can attack. So actually these, interestingly, I think are going to get attacked by these octopuses. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah. Getting attacked a little bit. You can also sort of hear the shift in music too there. The conflict music for like this chapter always reminds me of like a Dreamcast, like, I don't know. I think of like Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah,
Oh.
I get those vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love the octopi too. I also saw Royals here.
Oh, Royal's here.
And also loves the octopi sounds. They're so good. They're so good.
Oh no, I forgot that one had no health. Oh, I forgot they do so much damage. Wait, why did that one kill me?
They're strong.
Strong blaze, strong blaze.
Counterattack
You
one.
probably should have transformed.
It's weird.
Uh-oh.
Why
What's
did
the counterattack? You might not do well with their counter.
Oh, because it got hit last round. That was when that was already hurt. Oops. I'll keep exploring.
You win some, you lose some.
Latu, do you have any questions in chat? I'm seeing some stuff happening, but I've been too focused on
Hmm.
expanding my space empire.
No questions so far, just a lot of people saying really positive things. at
Oh,
the moment.
that's nice.
Yeah, someone was saying they thought the artist was doing a great job at communicating the sort of like mental similarity between Vashti and Rain and how she rebelled from with the colors and posing. What are nice things do we have in chat to read?
We've got Greg. Greg,
Yeah, I was about to read those.
please
It blew
do.
their mind. Yeah, so I focused on Rain prior to the early access, so when I started playing Chapter 3, it completely blew my mind how powerful the unified spirit faction is in terms of world building and storytelling. I do not know I could love Cantata background even more. And then a little tongue face emoji.
Oh, that's so nice.
The audio design is good. Vengeance of the Land Octopae. AI over dev.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fighting back. The game's fighting back. It's had enough.
Someone clipped me from the last stream where I was like, I'm gonna show you kids how to play Cantata, and then like a unit died, and I was like, actually, sorry. Let's see. Actually, let me look at my tech tree. I'm a little rusty on my own tech tree. So we need the animator and the alchemist. Actually, what do I actually want here? So looking up here, I've got kind of this base of units. Oh, there's some people already here for me. So great. I have these other units that I just got. I'm gonna walk these down to the tree. I think I might encounter some resistance here. So take that. Another hot tip for Cantata that I think people don't necessarily know is that if you click a spot to move on, if you basically double click that spot, the unit will kind of like warp to that spot. So if I click here and then click, it will kind of like, choop. So instead of like watching the whole animation, it just works.
Someone says they love the big chunky boys. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
agree. I agree with them.
The chonkers.
Like
The
OG
chunkers.
Cantata unit.
Yeah, they are. This was like one of the first, not this exact design, but it was sort of like one of the first units that we made. Vitaly, the pixel artist, did.
What, 5 years ago? 7? Something?
It was like, yeah, it was like 7 years ago.
Um,
It's been in the cooker for a minute. All right, so my poor builder drone over here,
doing his best.
I think he's gonna be.
You can't run away because of the opportunity attack.
What's it called?
And if you
What's it,
actively
standing-
attack,
Standing.
You've sent this poor guy to die.
Octopus bait. Goodbye.
We'll pretend that's what his purpose was all along.
Yeah. R.I.P. All right. I think I'm gonna. So this is Cantata. So we're building supply lines. We're moving units around a map. A way to kind of think of the game, if you're sort of new to this, it's basically a giant tactical grid. So like most games that are tactics will take place in a grid that's like this size, like 5x5 or something. We're sort of like, it's a giant tactical grid. So I'm just playing on this side of the map here. But if I go up here, you can see that, there's a lot more stuff to kind of explore. There've been some like reviews of people or some comments on the Steam forums talking about like how long the game is. And we say that kind of each map generally takes like 2 to 3 hours. But I mean, you could honestly spend a lot more time just kind of doing everything on a map. They're more like kind of places you can explore and discover. It's not like I have to beat this very specific scenario and then kind of move on. You can kind of like vibe out on the map and just kind of do your thing. But that said, some people have played like 40 hours or like someone's even got 100 hours in Cantata. So like you can really kind of get into it. And part of that is because, so I'm playing the chapter campaigns right now here, but another big part of Cantata that we love talking about is that there is a built-in modding editor So the editor for all of the maps in the game is actually, all the maps in the game, like all the main chapter maps, are actually made with the map editor itself. And it can do all sorts of fun things like place down as many units as you want. You can do stuff like placing down terrains, and you can do stuff where you like randomly place down terrains. You can place down stuff on top of terrains, like, I don't know, some debris.
A lot of
Tactical kid
debris.
picks.
Place down as much debris as you want. And you can also right click and delete.
And carve out some paths.
Carve out some paths. I can place a unit down here, and I can save this as like Berserk Brown. Sure.
Very cozy. It looks great.
And then I'll load up Berserk Brown. And
Coziest
then,
debris.
oops, that was the wrong editor. Skirmish, Berserk Brown. And now I'm playing on my map. Just like that. Few seconds.
That easy.
Yeah. So you can do like the map, you can do like very simple stuff, like kind of what I was just doing, where you're just placing down maps and units, but you can also do much more complex stuff. So like that map I was just playing, chapter 3, was all built in this editor. So there's actually like, we use all the same tools. And to that end, what we did do recently in the most recent patch is that we actually released the basic tutorial publicly. So if you've played Cantata or played the tutorial, you've probably seen, let's see, basic tutorial here. So I start out, this is the tutorial for Cantata. It teaches you how to play the game. So there's some text here. We're like, here's how we do all this stuff. And then, I can select a unit. There's some dialogue. When I mouse over here, I have objectives, so I can like move my conscript here. And then that does text and kind of tells you everything. So this whole tutorial was actually built inside the modding editor. Lottie just posted in the chat a link to download this. So on the Cantata forums, we're starting to try to make people kind of post maps there and kind of stuff they're working on. So we posted the basic tutorial there. So if you want to go there, you can download that tutorial. And then what you can do is, if you put it in the specific scenarios folder, I actually need to make a note of this, on your computer, you can actually go to the modding, go to load, and you'll see this thing that's called tutorial. And if you click this, you will see the tutorial map. So this is literally the same tutorial map that you play on, and you can see all the units and kind of the stuff that's part of this. But what's also kind of cool is that none of like the logic or stuff of how the map works is actually hard coded. It's all just done in the editor. So if you go to triggers here, you can actually see how we do all the tutorial stuff. So you can see like, oh, we're setting terms and conditions. You can also go to objectives and see how all the objectives are configured, and kind of how we like chain them together. You can see how we are selecting certain things to say like, oh, when this specific rickshaw loads this thing, we'll like play some dialogue and then change an objective and all that stuff. So I know Daniel, one of our scenario designers, posted up a map on the forums. It must have been almost, 3 or 4 weeks ago now. That was kind of like a more advanced trigger map to kind of show you how to do more interesting stuff with like wave-based attacks. This map is more of like mostly like a meat and potatoes Cantata map, where you've got some units, you've got some kind of basic trigger work, and it would just kind of like show you how it works. So this is here for you to basically, you can download it, put it in your map folder, open it up, and just kind of like see how we do stuff. So yeah, I guess like a quick, like a small overview of just how it works generally. So if you do want to download it and check it out, most of the way this map works is that there are kind of like daisy chained objectives. So when you complete one objective, or I guess at the very start, there's like the start trigger, which just happens when turn is 1. We play a sound, play some dialogue, and then we turn on this objective, select conscript. So if you go to the select conscript objective here, this has got some conditions and actions that it will do. And what it does when it gets completed is that it turns on a different objective, which is move conscript. And then move conscript, if I go there, turns on another objective called in turn. So basically, like as you complete objectives, we're kind of just toggling other objectives on and off, and that kind of pulls you through the map. So if you want to see how we kind of do any of the actual tasks in the game, it's actually kind of cool. You can see the kind of corresponding thing. So like if you want to have a trigger in your game that's like, oh, I want something to happen when someone like builds a garage or builds a unit, you can look here as kind of a reference to see like, oh, how does that happen? Oh, there's a condition called interactable built. They build a garage owned by player one, etc. So this is kind of given to everybody in the community to check out, to see how stuff works. And obviously, if you have questions about it or want to know how we did other stuff in the game, the forums are open for anybody to sign up for. And then also, obviously, the Discord and, I mean, honestly, Twitter, too. So we hope you all enjoy this and can learn from it, too. All right, next part of the stream. Let's talk about some new stuff. All right, so I'm going
this is exciting.
Yeah, so I'm going to close this, I guess, for a second and show this window. So I'm just going to set the stage a little bit here, and then Rogue, you can take over. So from Cantata's perspective, most of the mechanics are kind of in the game. So we shouldn't necessarily be seeing a lot of like new features and functionality of units, meaning that like stuff can like move and attack and like supply and all that. We're not necessarily going to be seeing new stuff come to that formula, but there is one thing that was on the roadmap. This looks terrible when it's like that, so I'm not going to zoom it in, which if you can see here is unit passives. So this is something that we've known we want for a while, and if you look also on the kind of current roadmap, it is like the only thing that's like an actual unit feature. So I'm excited to say that we have some version of this working, and Rogue is going to walk us through it right now. Although nothing is set up, I'm on the right build. So just if you want to say a little bit more about it, then you can kind of guide my hand.
Yeah, I'll take it away. So basically, unit passives. You might be familiar with the perks of some units. And the idea of passives is that they are temporary perks. So you can buff or debuff stats for a period of time. They may or may not be permanent. There's going to be lots of ways that you can configure them. And the idea is that we can add even more nuance to units and add just more flavor and add more texture to tactical encounters. Is there anything else that we want to add, Kyle?
I think it's like some people have kind of mentioned on the Discord, I think especially about us not having, or not that we don't have it, but that there's like units could kind of do some more stuff. And so what we don't want is that like we just kind of add on things that are like just give a unit something to build or something. We kind of want more variety that is also sort of flavorful for the units. And so instead of it just being where like every unit can build or something, passives are kind of this way for us to express unit personality and like faction flavor for units beyond just the ability to build. So as we'll see in a moment, some of that stuff kind of shakes out to being where like, oh, the alien faction might have passives that are more geared towards like debuffs, debuffing of enemies, whereas the machine faction might have passives that are more geared towards buffing their self or their team. So that kind of stuff is kind of, it's another kind of vector for us to give more unit variety while also really kind of hammering on the flavor of a given faction.
Yeah, and it plays on all of the stats that we currently have. So movement range, attack strength, all this stuff that y'all are familiar with, and that make Cantata. Yeah. How should we
show it off?
All right. So I see you have chapter 2 open.
Or we can make a new map. That's also fine.
We can just make a new map. Yeah. So I'm thinking we can live configure some passives.
I'm down.
Because eventually, we will be giving you the tool that we'll be configuring with. I can't remember where that is in the roadmap, but you will have access to this tool. So I think we should start creating a map I think the alien units are pretty fun to work with. Could create a scenario with, do we want to have a alien and machine encounter or alien and human?
Sure. Maybe let's do like a hunter. I always think the trapper's like a good sort of like
Yeah.
passives person. What if we here's a thought. What if we do something where there is like some approaching machine, like a Samson,
Mhm.
and the Samson we can like slow it down with trappers.
Yeah.
So we can like
Ooh,
decrease its movement range or something.
yeah. What if we have a summoner kind of far away that can add strength to the hunter
Hmm,
too?
Someone
sounds
in
good.
chat asks, so are unit passives capable of being inactive or having triggers related to the passive activating?
Innate or triggers. Okay, so right now, so we have a few ways that we want passives to work. And the first is that we are going to directly apply them to units. Um, but the second concept with passives is that they will be able to apply to a uh, portion of the map and some collection of tiles. So we could do triggers. I think right now all passives will originate from units on the map.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to tie passives to triggers and locations.
Right. Yeah, I think to kind of just elaborate on that a little bit. Right now, it's not that units themselves have innate passive abilities. They have the ability to basically
So
grant themselves, other people, enemies, passives. So, and those passives can be, I guess we'll see in the configuration kind of what's possible with them. Um, so they're not something that like they just kind of have, but they can basically be granted by units for now. And like as Rogue said, eventually it will be something where they can also potentially like radiate from specific areas. So we've talked about this a little bit with like the tower transport for the rain, where maybe instead of it being like a healing project, like right, or a healing kind of, you can build a heal where in the tower transport you can click heal and you can heal immediately around you. Instead of having something like that, it could be possible where we make it where the tower transport basically radiates a healing passive such that at the start of a turn you get healed or something. But that's kind of a little further down the road. Whereas right now it's more of like a tactical ability to say I'm proactively choosing to do this versus it just kind of existing.
yeah.
All right, so we've got a hunter, two trappers, and a summoner. So let's see what we can do. All right, so I got our mod file open here. I just realized this is yeah. Opening up the data file on stream is always sort of
Everyone gets a
dicey.
sneak peek.
A sneak peek, but also avert your eyes.
Yeah.
Hunter, summoner. All right, so summoner, let's see. Yeah, so this is the data editing tool you might have seen on previous streams. People will all eventually get access to this, not necessarily in this exact form, but some version of this where you are able to do custom data. So when you can actually load in custom units and stuff, that will all happen here. So over here we have our grant passive ability, and let's give the summoner some passives. So Rogue, I'll let you kind of drive here what you think we should do. I'm assuming you
Yeah.
have one.
So yeah. So I think for this scenario, I'm kind of envisioning the summoner being able to summon the hunter and then make the hunter stronger. So
Oh,
yeah, while the what else do we have there? We've got
two trappers.
two trappers are like holding down the fort and keeping the Samson at bay. So right now we have a bunch of things that you can configure. There is the passive itself, which you can see with the little closed eye. Um, and uh, if we want to add more, we can do that now. I guess, yeah, let's add the passive first, and then we can talk about some of the other stuff. So I'm thinking with this summoner that we want to uh, add some strength. So this modifier number right
Oh, sorry.
to the left,
I'm
yeah,
too
this
excited.
number right here is the numerical value that will change. It can be positive or negative. So if you want to remove strength, you can make it -1 or -2. But if you want to add strength, we'll just keep it positive. Maybe we can make it 2. I feel like 2 is pretty good. And then this target stat right here is basically a drop down of all of the stats that you'll be able to affect with this modifier number. This is very likely to change, but right now we have some basic ones. So yeah, right there we see some attack strength, and I think that's pretty good. Also of note is that these projects that we can grant multiple passives at the same time. So if we wanted to, we could add strength, but maybe we want to have a trade-off for adding strength. So let's do a negative of some sort. Let's do -1, and let's see what stats we have. We've got health, storage slots, move range. That could be a good one. We're
Yeah, so you like kind
adding
of
strength
buff
but
it where it makes
removing.
it stronger but slows it down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So basically what the passive is just these two things. You can add some, I mean, buff some stat or debuff some stat. Um, but now there's some more stuff to configure for the project. So we have these passive options, which are basically targets. So what units can you affect, or can you build this passive to? So player only is yourself. Team only is if there is another player who is on your team. We haven't done a lot with that, but we do support it. We haven't talked a lot with that. And then any means that you can affect enemies. We don't really have an enemy only option, but that might be something that we could easily add if we decide. So let's say player only, uh, and let's look up this passive pattern. So this pattern right here is you'll probably have seen it for some attack patterns. Basically, when you're building something and you want to it's basically an area of effect. So if we were to add, maybe make this a 3 by 3, this means
Or
that
like a big
any
old
units,
chunky one. Yeah.
yeah, any units within a 3 by 3 tile range will be affected by this. So you can add these same passives to multiple units in some area.
And then
Um,
just so it's like we're saying, because we're game developers and the people in chat might not be, you
yeah,
are not having to do this to do passives in the game. We're just showing you kind of the configuration of how we configure the units, and you'll have the ability to configure similar stuff when we release these tools to everybody. But I think that it's worth saying kind of like this is the scope of what's possible. So you'll see these configurations kind of pop up inside of units, and it's obviously much easier to understand inside the context of the game. So we're just kind of showing you all of what's possible, and we're going to only
yeah,
do a small set of what's possible. But if you want to do something crazy, like, go ahead.
yeah.
Someone in
Um,
chat had the fun idea of making sick conscripts in rain missions who give adjacent friendlies -1 max HP.
wow, I love that. Um, Okay, so we've got a pattern. Oh, we do need to pick an image because that's what shows up in our little build menu. So there's a little P for perk slash passive.
Is it called perk?
I think it's called perk.
Where's it at?
Uh, it should be in the project images. We scroll down. Vision, 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 summon, skull, self-heal, move, move, move.
Default perk
Cross,
image. There we go.
oh, with a D. Perfect. Um, We don't have to add any requirements right now. We can just make it free. But this is how you configure if something costs uh, global resources or AP or anything in storage. Uh, the minimum range and maximum range are just what the tiles radiating outward from the unit that you'll be able to execute these tiles on. I don't think we need to touch that. These are all the default values right now, and you'll be able to get a good idea. But we do have this permanent flag, so the idea is that some passives might be permanent, and they'll never be able to be removed. But if this isn't the case, then the passives work on a time basis or a turn basis. So this expire time is the number of turns it will take before the passive is then removed. So after 3 turns, once we apply this to the hunter will get its move range back, and it will lose its increased attack strength.
Yeah. I think we should try this and see what happens.
I think so.
So we got, just to to recap, we have a summoner who we've configured with a passive ability that allows us to give someone that we own a +2 to attack and a -1 to move range. Doesn't cost anything, which is nice. Maybe I'll make it cost like a little bit of AP just so we can't like infinitely do it for now.
Yeah.
But then I guess, well, it's also a max stack amount. So did you talk about the stack amount?
Not really, but basically we do block the ability to add infinite of these perks onto a unit. So this stack amount is basically how many of this like project, we kind of tie it to the project. How much of that can we add to a unit? So if that number were 2, we could add 2 of this passive to our hunter, which means that we'd be able to get +4 attack but -2 move.
Maybe put a little stack on there. See what happens.
Exactly.
All right. So let's see what this does. So I've saved this map already. I might need to restart the game for the data. Yeah. Let me just restart it. Oh.
You can already see just chaining a bunch of stat changes can be really fun, but also add a lot of nuance and granularity.
All right, so here we go. Passives test. So what we'll see now is that the summoner... Oh, I placed the summoner on the wrong team. Oops.
Classic.
Let me just change that. All right, so modding, load, passives.
That's good.
I don't remember if we have an ability to change. These are all... Player 1, player 1, player 1, player 2. Great.
Sweet.
All right, so we're about to show off passes for the first time on a stream. There we go. Okay, so we got our summoner. And lo and behold, we have this.
Our grant passive. And so we can, by looking at this tooltip, we can see what we've configured. We add these passives to any valid targets when we build this. +2 attack strength and -1 move range. It's not permanent. It expires after 3 turns. And we can add 2 total to a unit at once. So once it expires, then you can add 2 more if you wanted. We've got some information about our ranges, and we also have our target type. So let's see if we can. Well, I guess it is within the range of the summoner, but yeah. So now we can see that we configured that 3x3 grid, and by that color on the map, we can see that if we click, we can grant these passives to multiple units. Don't pay no heed to the tooltip for multiple units currently. Oh, actually, what? It works. Oh, ha! Never mind. So why don't we? Do we want to add it to the trapper as well? We can do whatever we want.
Do as much as we want. So I guess just to check, right? So the hunter right now has 3 damage. The trapper has 3 damage. That should probably
And
be hard.
the
This
move
one also has
range.
And the move range basically gets us to right below that unit. So if we passive here, so there's no effect or anything, but now we can see that the hunter has 5 damage. And also if you look at its attack or its movement range, it's now unable to reach next to that unit. The trapper also now has 5. And so there it is.
Let's do it once more. Can we also, how long is I just want to make sure that the movement range. I know I've tested this, but
Of which one?
let's buff it even more. Get that hunter up to 7.
Oh yeah, so the movement ranges are getting much shorter. But yeah, the attack damage is now 7.
That's obscene.
Obscene. And if we try to do it again, we'll see that we can't really place it here because both of these units are now at their maximum stack amount. So even if you were to grant something here, because they already have that passive stacked twice, they won't get it again. You could do it here though, because you'll get this other trapper would receive the passive ability, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a very obscene attack strength.
Can the hunter surge? Yes. Okay, yeah, so we could just take this up here. And then... So yeah.
Just a one-shot KO, that's
one
Samson.
shot. Yeah. What we don't do right now is that we don't actually show passives in the UI. So eventually we will actually show the passives that are granted with like their expire time or whatever, so you can actually see a reference of like what's got what.
Yeah,
maybe
like,
you might
we
even
only
show it
have
on like
this.
the map or something, where like right above their head you can see like a little plus or whatever.
Yeah. And if you let's just end your turn a couple times and see that still got 7. We've configured it to be 3. So
Still 7. So this next
7.
turn.
And back to 3 attack damage. It's a good thing we killed that Samson when we did.
Yeah. Yay! Yeah.
So you can just imagine that this will just add a lot of flavor to factions and the units, and it'll just be loads of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so this will be like a feature. You'll kind of start seeing this pop up in different units as different abilities to kind of hopefully give you like a little more tactically interesting things that you can do kind of per engagement, instead of just like attacking. Basically, you can sort of better choose like, oh, well, maybe I had this one passive that grants a sort of really cool buff to a specific area, but it costs a lot of AP, but I don't know if I want to spend that AP because I might want to build a unit instead. So the idea is to kind of just give you more options, while also again like increasing the flavor of the factions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's asked if commander passives are a thing as well.
Yeah, no reason not.
What? Yeah. We could also, I mean, I'm always spitballing, but we could always do something that where we emit passives as well from a specific unit where it just has the ability to emit within a range some passive, and anything within that range. Kind of like the generals in Civ and I mean, loads of other games. But
Yeah.
yes, why not? Why not?
Yeah. So that's like a little preview of passives. I don't know if they'll make it into the next build that we send out to people, but they'll definitely be kind of coming to factions soon. Coming to a faction soon
Near
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 you
you.
soon.
Or far from you.
Yeah.
Very
And then
far.
that's kind of the last big feature for units that we wanted to get in as part of early access. So we're hopefully, obviously it'll need to be balanced and stuff, but I think it'll be exciting to see what people kind of do with them and how they use those abilities to, make the game a little more fun. Also, we're saying too, like the AI will also have access to this. So the AI will also be buffing their units. So it's not just like a slog fest all the time. All right. So we've been at it for about an hour. We've probably about 30 minutes left, and I want to spend some time talking about one other big change that's coming on to the game. So to tease this a little bit, we talked about this actually a few weeks ago on the post-stream chat in the Discord, which we might be doing today. I'm not actually sure. Before, we've done a thing where after stream chats on the Discord, we'll go and kind of hang out in the voice chat there for like 10 or 15 minutes afterwards, just to kind of field any further questions from the stream. But then also, this thing actually came up. We did like a kind of like a feedback session on the Discord as well, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I mentioned this to some people there, and I think that people were pretty receptive, and so I can say a little bit more about it now. So to demonstrate what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to open up what's a good one? Actually, chapter 3 is not a bad one to open for this. So in Cantata right now, units themselves all connect to each other with supply lines. Actually, no, I'm going to open up in chapter 1 instead. So what that means is that when you place a unit inside of like a region, that unit itself has output supply lines, and those supply lines are configured per unit basis. And then those things actually move the resources like across the map between individual units. So this has been like kind of a core thing of Cantata, but in the spirit of like early access and really listening to feedback, we're going to kind of change it up a little bit. So as a recap, like a very simple version of this, so we have these tech trees which show like this headquarters connects to the engine factory. It gives alloys, and the engine factory produces engines and blah, blah, blah. And so just to demonstrate that, so if I have like a refinery here, I connect it to this headquarters. Now my headquarters has a supply line that is spending some amount of resources here to then output a resource to my refinery. I can also build another thing like an engine factory. I can see here now my line is sort of weird because there's not enough alloys in the resource storage for my headquarters. So I need to update my draw. And then let's see, maybe I can move my conscript here and then place a little banner. So I've captured this region, and then now I can build this thing here. Uh-oh. So I built my garage maybe a little too far. But now you can see I've got my alloys coming from my headquarters that's flowing into the engine factory and refinery, and then the engine factory and refinery are producing engines and oil that go to this building to produce a rickshaw, etc. So that's like how Cantata works right now. It's that there are supply lines that move stuff across the map between individual units. The change that we're looking to do, or I guess I'll say what the kind of biggest issue that has come up as part of this. So the issue that we've seen a lot of with this sort of supply line configuration stuff is that there's kind of like a right way to do it. So when you're building these supply lines, like as I did here, if you really want this building to get connected, you kind of want to build these such that these things are kind of far enough apart so that they don't get attacked, but then also that they are able to reach kind of a unified target like this garage somewhere else. And so really you're just kind of like stepping through motions that of ways you have to build supply chains to have like an effective base. So if you do it right, it's like cool and fine. If you do it wrong, it's like a giant pain and it looks bad and you want to like reconnect all your supply lines. There's also like weird edge cases where like if I know an issue a lot of people have run into, probably people that are even in this chat right now, where like if you don't proactively disconnect supply lines, you start to get resources kind of like pooling at the ends of supply networks. So you'll get like a lot of like engines and oil kind of just sitting in like this kind of abandoned node, and you're like, well, you can unload supply onto the ground such that you could potentially then like move a rickshaw over to like capture it and then like drive that rickshaw somewhere else and then unload it, but that's just like annoying and dumb. So the current system has like a lot of these kind of small like finicky issues that are just like annoying to deal with. It looks cool when it kind of works, and I do still like the look of the supply lines everywhere, But what we're going to do, and we're going to test this on the main branch in Steam. So gird your loins. But the thing that we're going to do is that we're going to make it where instead of supply lines being connected between units, supply lines are going to start being connected between regions. So instead of it being where I connect my headquarters to the refinery connects to the garage, instead what happens is that when a headquarters, for example, builds something like alloys, that actually builds to a global like inventory for a given region. Or I guess it's a local inventory for
local,
a region.
yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm headquarters and I'm like building alloys, that builds to a storage for the region that I'm currently in. So in this example, if I'm a headquarters and I'm building alloys, they would actually start getting committed sort of to a landing zone or the landing zone region. What's cool about, so then what happens is that imagine that I still want to build oil from the refinery. So instead of the refinery itself kind of ferrying and building oil, what the refinery does is that it will go to its global storage in its region, pull down effectively like one alloy, and then push up one oil. So what that will do is it kind of transforms resources in a given region. And then to actually move resources, so imagine that I want to build this garage here, and this garage, as I know, needs oil and engines. Instead of having to explicitly connect a refinery and an engine factory to my garage to do output, what would happen instead is that my landing zone here would be connected to the scorched battlefield, provided that I own it, and then I can configure inside the context of that region what that connection does. So what that means is that it will still kind of function relatively similarly to how supply lines work now, where like they move resources along their supply line. But what will happen is that the lines will also kind of be like bi-directional. So if a landing zone is connected to a scorched battlefield, I can say how much I want to give Scorched Battlefield, and Scorched Battlefield could say how much it wants to give to Landing Zone. So they'll kind of like cross over. Tubes asks, sorry, regions would be connected with supply depots or off-map hidden. So right now, they will not be connected. The connection will be effectively totally abstract. The current rule is that the regions can only connect to stuff that is directly adjacent to them. Such that the
also owned by you.
And also owned by you. Having the supply depot thing, we sort of like thought about that a little bit, and it seems like it would be interesting. But what it just does is that like it just becomes like a total failure point for your whole supply network. So instead of having to focus on like, basically you could really cheese it where someone could just run in, kill the depot, and then it's like over. What this also does is that it puts more emphasis on like the pressure system. So region control, it becomes a much bigger thing because the ability to actually move your resources between a region is predicated on the fact that you actually own that region. So for example, if I have landing zone connected to Scorched Battlefield and I own Scorched Battlefield, but then someone takes it, all of a sudden my ability to have lines that are going to or from Scorched Battlefield are basically deactivated until I recapture that. The resources that are at Scorched Battlefield then also get kind of like locked up, so you can't like recapture them. So in actually taking the region, you kind of get the stuff. This is like sort of how it works in a game like Company of Heroes, with the difference being that in Company of Heroes, the capture points actually can't be destroyed. You just have to be in range of them. So you can imagine it's as if the whole region is kind of like a capture point. And if you're in there and you're committing pressure, then you're able to potentially flip on ownership of a region. Yeah. Sorry, Rogue, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, no, so we love this. And I actually think Bossaru just mentioned what I wanted to mention. So what would happen if a zone changes hands, i.e. if the landing zone is taken over? What happens to all the alloy and oil in there? So the way that regions work is we have neutral, owned by you, and enemy controlled. So different things would happen depending on what the pressure of the region is saying. So if the scorched battlefield or the landing zone becomes neutral, the all of our supply is basically frozen.
Yeah.
It's not going to be destroyed, but we can't add to it and we can't access it. But the moment that the enemy controls the region, we're going to slowly start losing our resources. So it's not going to be completely gone. And you'll still have the ability to recover some of your resources, but then it becomes time sensitive, and your ability to regain control over the region.
Yeah. So your resources that are inside of a controlled region will basically start to encounter like attrition, where they'll kind of start to tick down. So if someone captures one of your main bases and you've got a lot of stuff stored there, the resources are going to start like tick tick tick, like probably at a rate of like 1 per turn or something. Other other reasons, actually, one thing I'll show too is I'm kind of working on a version of this for the UI mockup. Again, this is very, very rough, but what this will also mean is that you actually start to get like a proper kind of like region interface effectively that allows you to actually manage your region. So you can sort of see what we're thinking here. Regions have names, teams, there's this global storage, there's region connections. So what I'm currently conceiving of is that a region has a limited number of connections. So it's not like every region can connect to every adjacent region. It's that the regions themselves have kind of like slots basically for places they should connect to. And then inside of a given connection, here you have like slots which are able to place or like assign supply types that you want to go out to there or into there. So and they're like I want to talk about requirements. So basically like a line can be configured to say, hey, send this to this and this will send this back or whatever. The other thing is that stuff like, I won't talk about population yet. Things like infrastructure slots and the ability to use roads, which was about like that was kind of like a level up thing. What we're trying to do, and this might not be in this first release, is that basically these are more like opt-in. So if you want to have 2 regions be connected through this concept of like roads, you can build like this roads thing for the given region, and then that gives that region, the whole region, road access. And then so TBD on if it connects between infrastructure, or maybe there's like, some sort of like rally point thing that acts as like a road connection. But basically these are more opt-in now, and they're decoupled, like roads especially. Roads used to be connected directly with the concept of a supply line. Now it's slightly more abstract, where it's more connected to the concept of a region, where a region has the ability to grant roads to something.
Yeah, and also of note, these connections are not typed. So you can
Yeah.
vary whatever supply type that you want within that. And there are, I'm just going to try to cover some of the questions because there's a whole bunch of comments. Yes, basically, if you do have like a dead space zone, if you wanted to, like the scorched earth, you could just connect those regions and ferry supply. So you could ferry alloys to scorched earth and then to the next region if you want alloys, but you just want a region that is only has soldiers. And we do have the intention of it will take time for, and I believe, Kyle, you should correct me if I'm wrong, but it will take turns to transfer supply from region to region.
It'll be kind of like it is now for supply lines, take basically a turn per jump. So it, you can sort of like, if it's a big map, it will take a long time for them to move all the way across the map. I'm seeing other questions.
Yeah. Changing hands. Practice is island between 2 adjacent. Yes. There is a comment about. Oh yeah. Would it?
Could
said.
Rain on rain violence.
Would it? No. What were you gonna say about that?
Oh, so Basru asks about I think the question is that if I own a region and I'm playing as the Reign of Harmony and Prosper, and an enemy playing as the Reign of Harmony and Prosper gets control of that region, because both of our factions use the same resources, can I take those resources? For now, I think the answer is no, because they're
Right.
the resources are like owned by a player, and it would make it weird where mirror matches like that have a different gameplay element than matches that are asymmetric. So I don't want it to necessarily be the case where like, oh, if you happen to play against a Reign player, it changes the regions. It should feel like you're kind of, everyone's still fighting for the same stuff. So even if they are like the same, they're not really the same. One is owned by you and one is owned by somebody else. Yeah. I mean, common resources would be cool. I think that the thing fighting against that is mostly that we want the factions to still kind of have their own flavor and ways they might use their own individual resources. Or you do what like StarCraft does, or again, Company of Heroes or any RTS where it's like everything just uses like gas and crystals. And I don't really want to do that, especially because we do have sort of tech specialty stuff, but I don't know. Maybe the game will turn into that in like 6 months.
That's interesting. Oscar mentioned if when the region changes ownership and the supply type degrades, it gets turned into resources,
That could
global
be cool.
resources that can then be used by the one who now owns the region.
That would actually be really cool. I think that could be a cool way to like kind of feel like you're kind of taking it over versus it just kind of like
Yeah,
disappearing. So you're
exactly.
incentivized to take it for not only just, you don't have to mine, you can just take someone's thing. That's cool. We should make a note. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah. What- oh, there was something else. Oh, so this also is exciting to us, and I don't know how much we'll go into it, but essentially, if you're playing the maps and you're capturing regions, you will have noticed that you've been gaining victory points,
Mhm.
and victory points have felt perhaps a little ill fleshed out. Um, this gives us so much opportunity to play with what do we do with victory points?
Yeah. Do you want to say?
I'm gonna let you do.
All
I'm gonna
right.
let you.
Yeah. So I think the idea for victory points is basically that victory points are not only like a sort of a potential win condition. Certain regions grant you victory points. Some maps, especially later on, have conditions where it's like, oh, you need to have like at least 10 victory points, which sort of translates to like you need to have like 5 of these 10 regions captured or something. The idea is to effectively turn victory points themselves into a currency as well. And that is what you spend on a region to basically invest in it. So in a region, I can basically assign some number of victory points to any of these things. And then that is basically bought. You kind of like buy the perk or whatever. They'll cost like different amounts. TBD on if it's permanent or temporary. Permanent would be a lot easier to like reason and think about. And it would also make it feel like you're really investing in a region. So if you do something, you might want to like capture it again because you've got victory points invested there. So again, a little bit further down the road, but the idea is that instead of like regions having like levels and stuff or whatever to kind of like level them up, you kind of have like a more like an a la carte spread to say, what do I want to buy for this region? How do I want to invest this region? Because this region, I might not care about roads. I might just care about X, Y, or Z other things. So I don't want to like have to get to level 2 just so I can get more infrastructure slots. I'd rather like really invest in infrastructure slots right now because I want to build more stuff here, which the current system, there's no way to do that. In the current system, you have to level it up, and that gives you infrastructure slots effectively. Yeah. The other thing I'll say as well, and this is sort of like a bigger thing that may or may not come as part of this push, is that another reason to do this is that we are going to add an ammo system into the game, which I think we've talked about a little bit before in the past. But in the previous and then the way ammo works, so to speak, is pretty simple. Basically, units that can attack, especially units that have projectile type stuff, need to have some supply type in their storage that allows them to do that attack. When they do that attack, that resource gets exhausted and it goes away. Easy enough, right? The issue that we were running into when we were trying to plan this is that in a system where everything has individual storage and the only way you can have stuff is by individual inventory, if I built 10 conscripts, all of a sudden I have to figure out how to get 10 different units some number of ammo. So units can probably build stuff or they'll like spawn with some ammo, but if I need to resupply like 10 conscripts, like that's just a pain to do, both like logistically and from like a pure like clicks standpoint. So the idea that I think is actually more representative of how this stuff kind of works is that when a unit builds something, or basically uses resources at all, it will look to the region storage first for that resource and can directly spin that resource. So said differently, in a model where I have like 10 conscripts or whatever, and they all need to attack, but none of them have any ammo, if that region itself has, I think it's like small arms or whatever inside of its storage, any of those conscripts would still be able to attack because they would pull a small arms from their region. So what you can do is as your front line kind of moves across the map, you can kind of like ferry resources to these regions that people are working in. And then if you run out, there is the fallback of their own inventory. But then if you don't have anything in inventory and you don't have anything in region storage, then you're like kind of in a bad spot. Another reason we want to do ammo in general is to kind of like more like tie in units to the actual supply network system. Right now, there's kind of like an issue where you can basically build a unit or a few units, and as long as you kind of like micro around enemy attack ranges and stuff, there's not really any reason to ever like have to return to a base or have to try to like make it so that you can't just use the same unit all the time. Like I know in chapter 1, this happens pretty shortly in the chapter, so it's not a spoiler, but you get a Grand Bombard unit, which is a big artillery unit. And right now, what people will do, who are smart, is that they'll basically like kind of like kite units with the Grand Bombard all around the map. And because the Grand Bombard doesn't have any ammo or any ammo requirement, it can just effectively shoot forever. So there's no reason to not just build the strongest unit, because that strongest unit can attack infinitely as long as it's alive. So the idea is to actually add this different kind of power curve. So something like the Grand Bombard would like have it where the Grand Bombard maybe spawns with like 1 or 2 heavy ammo. So it's got like 2 shots. And then you got to like figure out how to get the Grand Bombard back into a supply network or get it inside of a region that's able to supply it heavy arms. So it just makes the whole battle feel like way more integrated with the supply network and the tactical layer. And I think that, again, until we had this idea of like region storage and stuff, it was going to be a whole mess. And I think that now it will feel natural, which is a weird thing to say, but it will feel like it makes sense. You're like, oh, well, obviously they have ammo and I have to make ammo. And so like now it's an important thing where you actually, the arms factory is a bigger deal because you want to build more arms factories to pump out resources, to go to certain regions, to supply your front lines. But then you also, like, it gives you a reason to want to also just build more stuff, because what they can actually do is important for the functioning of the whole army. So I need to take a sip of water. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can read out the next question if you want to take a breather. So we've got one that says, could a passive create more ammo? Unless you've already covered that one.
I tried to respond to that. I think it feels more Cantata to remove the requirement to have as much ammunition. Because it's sort of creating something from nothing to add ammo via a passive. And right now the passive system doesn't really integrate with supply, since it's mostly for stats. will the people of Sun and Shadow have to deal with ammo since they are all melee? Uh,
Probably not. So again, that's
Faction differences.
yeah. So another again, so like for Cantata, like almost every design decision we make has like a thematic angle too, which is to say like, how does this affect these factions? How can we make these factions feel different? And yeah, I think for the people of Sun and Shadow, having no ammo requirement lets them kind of continue to be this like very strong, like they're like integrated with the planet, so they're able to just exist on the planet kind of independent of a lot of these like supply infrastructures. And they the aliens for now, like the way they work is that they kind of build up these like small micro bases everywhere that help them kind of keep their forces alive. But that's more important than trying to like make sure the berserker has like whatever. There could be stuff where we could have different versions of attacks that use resources in some way, that like if you spend 2 of this, like I can't remember the name of their stuff off the top of my head, but if you spend some of their resources, that's a way for you to like do like a stronger, you could like buff yourself to give yourself a stronger attack or something, but that's resource dependent. But I think at a baseline they won't have to I think all of them maybe don't have to probably use ammo. So I think that'll be like a really interesting like thing to work around. Smoke grenades. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could smoke grenades by basically having some ability that reduces vision or something, or increases vision costs as like a passive on an area.
Mm-hmm.
We got one more question. So
damage buff.
Using the essence of rage.
Yeah, exactly. Having my chair. Having like a buff basically that's like it requires ammo and it allows you to buff, but you're not like a conscript runs out of ammunition and it's like useless. So it's all of a sudden it's like and then you're kind of like hightailing it back to your base, and then you're kind of like baiting. So I think again right now it's trying to make each encounter feel more tactically interesting and have more like dynamics going on than just skirting attack ranges effectively. So yeah. Last thing I'll say about this is that this is going to go live on the main branch in some very basic form. Like the UI is going to look pretty rough as well, and that's going to be on the main branch of the game. But then we are going to have a legacy branch available at the same time, that if you're like just trying to play through chapter 1, 2, and 3 and you don't want to like deal with what's like maybe weird about the region system right now, you can just go to the legacy branch and play 1, 2, and 3. It'll basically be the build as it stands now. The intention is not to revert back to the legacy branch, but it will be kind of a way to say, hey, if that was a version of Cantata that you really liked, go ahead. We're moving forward in this other direction. Which I think is like, the game will be much better for this. I think that it took us doing all this other stuff to really figure out where the game wants to go. And a lot of the feedback we've gotten from people in general about the supply system and just connections and stuff has kind of led us to this point. Other nice stuff is that like all of like the supply management UI stuff and the units just like goes away. So like you click a unit, you got some projects, you got some stats. That's all you need. You have an inventory. So a lot of that like finickiness of stuff, especially at a scale of Cantata, where like you might be fielding armies of like 30 or 40 units, having individual things for all of those, for like especially supply stuff, is just like, that's a lot. So Gregor's got some stuff to say.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, do you want me to read it all out? Or
yeah, go ahead.
You get it. Okay. So we got, dealing with scraps and trading this resource between my units as unified spirit to activate unique abilities is one of the most satisfying game mechanics of the game. But having to deal with ammo for all of my units for something as basic as simply attacking may feel tedious, don't you think?
So this is
will you read the next one as well? I feel
yeah, of course. I didn't know if you needed a breather between them. Okay. Honestly, I feel like the region/supply change could really help the Rain faction. Advancing in tech tree feels lengthy, and reaching the late game buildings / units takes so much time compared to the other faction.
It's true.
You were right, Lottie.
Yeah. For the first question about ammo for attacking will feel tedious. I think that what it will do is it will make it be. Let's see. I don't think it will be tedious. I think that it will be like. It'll be such that the game feels like it is built for this, which is the best way to describe it. Whereas I think in a system, basically the ammo will be there as a thing that you kind of need to have as this like spout of resources to your front line. And that's just a dynamic of the game that already kind of exists or is supposed to exist in the game right now and doesn't. So as long as you basically have like a spigot of like ammo or small arms kind of going to where your front line is at and then potentially connecting it to the next region, it will feel like you can just attack. However, what that also means is that if some unit or enemy player comes around and attacks and takes back one of your regions, then all of a sudden that spigot gets turned off and then you have to kind of fix that. So I don't think it'll necessarily be a thing where like you're having to juggle individual unit inventory ammo things all the time, but it will be, I mean, it'll be something like Advance Wars, right? Where like in Advance Wars, even on big maps, units have ammo and stuff, and then they have the ability to go resupply and then all that. So it's a dynamic of, I think, how this game should feel. And the goal is also trying to reduce the tedium of that. And I think in doing that, we're also kind of doing bigger solves that will kind of like just bring everything together, where the game is like this like resource supply network integrated with the tactical system, which has kind of been the goal since like day one. And I think that this will be a better version of that. The rain tech tree stuff. Yeah. So I think the rain tech tree is definitely, much longer for people. It takes longer to get there for sure. Giving different supply types more utility beyond their buildings, I think will kind of help ease that tension. But another change that we've actually talked about that we haven't done yet is basically like getting rid of cooldowns for rain stuff or for rain units at buildings, because you've already spent so much time building the actual thing to get there, versus like the machines and the aliens can basically put down stuff in like 2 or 3 buildings, whereas like getting an Onusaya with the rain takes a lot longer. So yeah, we've talked about basically getting rid of cooldowns and that stuff where it's like, oh, you built it, you can do it. So that's the hope.
We got another comment in chat saying XCOM, the zombie things in their words, had a fascinating ammo mechanic where killing one would give you another action point. I like that, so it gives an incentive to aggressive play and killing.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, I need to play War of the Chosen. I have not. I think they generally like AP banking stuff is something we've sort of talked about ways to kind of like regenerate AP. Or like I even know I was playing Triangle Strategy a little bit, and they have a system where units that attack a unit that is adjacent to a friendly unit will make that friendly unit also attack for free. So it sort of incentivizes you like getting stuff around. That game is much smaller, so it kind of works. It wouldn't really work for Cantata, but looking at ways where you can basically, like re-up your AP to keep it going. So you're kind of like daisy chaining people through the map. Because I do think, right now there's still no turn limits in the maps, so people will just like run up the turn timer without any sort of recourse. So something that could be cool too. All right. I'm going to move on because we're about an hour and a half, but sounds like initial thoughts are positive. This will hopefully be in player hands pretty soon. It's going to be rough, but that's also why we're early access. That's why we have the Discord. So we will talk about it, and we will be there for everybody. The last thing I'll talk about a little bit is what someone, namely Rogue, has been working on a small bit that has secretly kind of gone live into the game, but is not turned on yet, which is
multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So we're working
Very
on
exciting.
multiplayer.
Yep. People have been asking. We shall deliver.
Yeah. So it's on the roadmap. It's gonna be a thing that is going to be very rough when it comes out. What you can expect basically is a very simple. I'll go to the main menu. So what this will kind of look like in its first pass is that we will probably have a small number of maps that are kind of like maps that you can play multiplayer stuff on. We actually already have one that's built. I think actually there's 2 that are built, so probably might just be those 2 to start potentially. And what it will be is that there'll be something up here that's called like, I don't know, multiplayer or whatever. And you'll click that, and sort of like StarCraft, Warcraft, whatever, any lobby-based game, you'll see a list of like lobbies here that you can play with people. You can like click that map, and then this is actually the remnant of the old multiplayer map. But you'll be able to see who's in there. You'll be able to like pick your faction, and then you'll be able to play on that map together. It's going to be very rough, but I think it will work. So Ash says it's ready.
PvP?
Multiplayer not ready yet, but it's getting pretty close. So again, it's going to be very rough when it goes in there. We're in early access. But we want to also just get it in because I think there's a lot of stuff that everyone obviously wants it. The game is already technically multiplayer. Like you're playing a turn-based game with 4 other AI or 3 other AI opponents. So it's not like a huge thing for us to do. It's just a time thing.
Yeah.
And Rogue has been working diligently on getting it in. And so hopefully we will see some of that pretty soon.
And eventually, again, with the modding system, you'll be able to create your own PvP maps, whatever you want, your own campaign maps, co-op maps, maps that are meant to be played with multiple people. Really, it spirals into so many things. The
first release will just be so like maps that are kind of like vouched for by us, and then from there we're gonna kind of start expanding the scope where it'll be like, oh, modded maps with our terrains, then it'll be like modded maps with your terrains, and then modded maps with your units, and so it'll eventually kind of be like you can basically play in whatever. But just to start, the small kernel will be probably 2 skirmish maps that you can play against another player. So no date on any of that stuff yet, but hopefully soon. TM.
Everyone seems pretty hyped about PvP.
I can see some fireworks in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, much harder for game. Yeah, I think a lot of the sort of systems in the game where we kind of designed them twice. We're kind of designing them such that the factions feel good and the campaign maps still feel good to play. But then a lot of the stuff, it's very geared towards skirmish. So, once we build the Europe map and someone builds all the regions in Europe, and then we're playing like skirmish Cantata on like Europe, that will be a different ball game. And it'll be really cool to see how everything kind of like fits together. So I think that about covers it. If anyone has any other questions in the chat, I'll wait around for just like a few seconds. Rogue or Lottie, do you all have anything you want to add?
I think I'm good.
Risk Cantata, yes.
Yeah. Invading Mars. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
I mean, we have like, I don't know how big I can do. Here we go. Make a really big map.
I can't wait to see all the chaotic ones.
How many players at once can be in PvP in one match? ? I don't know if that's blocked by the amount of players.
It's not. So right now, there's not actually a limit, but I've sort of in my head, I have it like 8. And the main reason for that is just like at the top of the screen, how many icons you can have up there until it gets weird. But like, there's not, if it works for one, it could work for a lot. The biggest difference it's not even real time though. So I don't know. I think probably 8 to start. And then if someone's like really wants to do a 16 player, like, Europa death match,
you'll set aside an entire Saturday.
Oh my God. I would love to do that. It's like, just like a giant Cantata game, of 16 people just kind of pushing units around on a map. That would be great.
Do you want to? I was gonna say there's a
No,
pretty big
I was gonna
question.
ask you to read it because my eyes are really squinting
Yeah,
to
that's
see
fine.
the words.
Don't worry, I'm like leaning in on the screen when I read like stuff. Okay. We've got for the 2 maps you designed. What was your approach / idea for PvP maps in this game? Short / large players start near or far from one another, etc. I think this game could go in a lot of different directions, but interested to see how you envision it.
This is a great question. So I was not the designer of them, so I obviously know the designer. The designer of the 2 current Skirmish maps was the same person who designed Chapter 1 and also designed Chapters 4 and 7, which you haven't seen yet. But he did it kind of. We had basically the same question you did, which was to say like, what is a Cantata Skirmish map? So there's a 4-player map. That is sort of symmetrical, but kind of like asymmetric, where it could be played 1v1 v1, like a free for all with 4 people, or it could be played 2v2. I mean, you could play it 1v3 if you wanted to, but I don't know why you would, but you could do that. That one is sort of like, it's almost like a King of the Hill style thing where there's like a region in the middle that has like a lot of victory points, and so you kind of like, it's kind of symmetrical-ish. And there's a 1v1 map he did that is like way more like symmetrical, and there's like, it's slightly different on the north and south corner, but they're like it's more of like a mirror match sort of thing. What we haven't done is done like really big Cantata map style stuff, and I think people know this already. We are working on a procedural map generator, so that's like actively being developed right now as well, and so that would actually generate more like civilization style maps where the maps themselves are more natural, or I guess what you would describe it, like they're more kind of like, I'm fighting on continents, and it's more like it might be slightly less balanced because of that. So we kind of have both, right? So we have like these kind of hand-authored, mirror matchy, sort of symmetrical skirmish maps, and then we're also working on a generator where it'll be like you and other 16 players join a match, and a map gets generated and then given to you all, and you all play on the same map. So yeah, a lot of questions coming in. Everyone cares
Yeah, I
about
was gonna
multiplayer.
say, I don't know how much you covered with this one, but yeah, is co-op on the roadmap?
Sorry, someone says all the Cantata user base in one match.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I mean, all the developers, yeah. Is co-op on the roadmap? Sort of. I mean, the answer is like, yeah. It's basically like we don't differentiate about co-op. So if you want to play a match where it's you two, or it's like you and a friend or a few friends versus you and some other friends, you can do that by like team affiliation stuff for a map. The map that's made just has to be configured for that thing. But we won't do like co-op campaign maps. Like none of the core chapter maps will be co-op. But yeah, you can have like, you could have 2 people. I mean, the cool thing about Cantata is that we don't really differentiate. There's a very thin line between like prefab skirmish and like scenario design. So someone could make a map, like a chapter map like we made, put it online and say, there's 2 slots in this map. The people who choose these slots are on the same team and they can't change their faction. And so you could go in there, join, and then you would play this person's like handcrafted scenario or whatever. So like that's not something that we explicitly have to do. It just kind of like works. So yeah, TBD. I mean, yes and no, right? So it does work, but it's not something that we explicitly like do.
You want the next question?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, how do you plan to limit the first turn advantage in PvP?
Is that Red Halo? It is Red Halo.
Yeah. He's popping in.
I think the long and short answer is that I don't think it matters in Cantata. Feel free to quote me on that when I'm horribly wrong. But I think first turn advantage really matters when maps are very small. So in that situation, it would be kind of up to the scenario designer to potentially, extra resource or units for player 2. It'd be up to the scenario designer to basically maybe balance the map slightly differently for that. For the scale Cantata typically operates at, I don't think there is a big deficit, especially because you have to build stuff up anyways. So it's like the maps are big enough where I think it shakes out to not really matter. But yeah, it'd be up to the scenario designer. If a map, basically, I think it's a case by case basis where there's not a one size fits all solution. I think it's not a thing on most Cantata maps, but if you're playing a very tactical 1v1 on like a 16 by I'll just build one of these. Like if you're doing this, you'd probably want a one turn advantage or like a balanced thing for a map like this. But we don't really do that. So map gen system for multiplayer. Yeah, I mean that's what we're working on. So hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
I got another question from Red Halo as well, which is, can enemy AI units spawn in PvP matches like in Civilization?
Yeah. So the way it kind of works right now is that what will happen is that you can actually kind of see this when you join a skirmish match. But basically, when someone makes a map, I can show you right now. Yeah. So that is basically these options here. So when you make a map, maps themselves have effectively like player slots or whatever. And when you make a player slot, you can set the control type. So if I said AI, this is an AI player. And if I say this is human, this is a human player. What you can also do is that you can set this to be fixed or choosable. So if you're like, this player has to be an AI that has this configuration or whatever, you can say this is AI and then this is fixed. And then when you start a map online or whatever with that map or scenario, the players who are like inside and configuring that map will not be able to join that slot for that map at that player slot. So it basically locks that player. So you might go here and say, okay, well, these are two AIs. So this one is a human, and they can choose their faction. This one is an AI, and you can't change it, and you can't change the faction. And then this one is a human, and they can't change their faction. So like you can sort of configure it however you want to. It won't necessarily be like prescriptive. And if you're doing a generated map, all bets are off. You can just kind of choose whatever, because if you're generating it, there's no configuration. But what this allows you to do is have like you're kind of suggesting an authored scenario. And one of the skirmish maps does currently have this, where I think there's like 4 player slots, but in the 5th player slot is like the AI player that is like in the middle of the map that can kind of like spawn units or whatever. So
I also think it kind of skirts. At one point, I remember implementing a way for Shoal to spawn units in different areas.
Yeah.
There was like some percentage of chance that Shoal would spawn any of its units in certain areas, very much like the barbarians in Civ. No matter once you lose it as P2 and then it becomes a top priority on you. Oh yeah, map generation system potentially accounting for player 2 benefits.
Yeah.
Wow, look at how great such a small map looks, even just adding a few tiles.
For the map generation stuff, it's probably not going to do anything with like player 2 advantage, because also like these maps are going to be generated for like potentially multiple people. So I don't know, we'll see. It's also hard to say like what a second player advantage would look like. Could very much vary per map and
per faction and
so
what factions are on the map.
I don't know,
because if everyone's playing as the people of Sun and Shadow, what does that mean? How do we know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even you look at like the movement ranges and stuff, right? The movement ranges are balanced for like bigger maps, so it's a whole different can of wormies.
Yeah.
I'm glad people are excited about multiplayer though.
Yeah.
And the map generation stuff. I think the game will it'll honestly really sing when that stuff comes in. It'll be like, oh wow, this is what it was meant to be. But yeah, thank you all for joining the stream. Also, thank you to everyone who has been leaving reviews for us on Steam. That stuff really helps. We're sitting at a positive. I think we were where it might even been very positive for recent reviews.
Yeah.
Thank you all for leaving reviews. If you haven't left a review on Steam, go and do that. That stuff
Please
really
do.
legit matters. Especially if you have got hours in the game. That stuff makes other people find Cantata, and it will help you find more multiplayer opponents. Also, I mean, just generally, I think the reception of the game has been really positive. One of the kind of social media manager people at Modern Wolf has been doing a great job of posting. I don't have it open here. Posting kind of community rundowns every month or so, and you can see a lot of YouTube coverage has been coming to Cantata. If you want to do a stream of the game, that's awesome. If you want to work on maps, whatever, leave it. But again, leaving reviews is that super, super, super helps. So if you enjoy Cantata and you want other people to see the game and kind of enjoy it as well, let people know in the reviews that it's good. I think it's pretty good. We don't even have a lot of bugs, so the game's fun to play and it's only going to get better.
Only going to get better.
So yeah, thank you all. Seriously, the reception has been super positive. We're really energized to keep making the game the best it can be.
Yeah.
And as you've
We're
seen,
almost at 90% positive as well.
almost 90% positive.
Awesome.
And we got passives coming. We got giant region
Multiplayer
supply
coming.
line changes. We got
Yes.
multiplayer coming. We got ammo coming. Even the other stuff we haven't talked about. Yeah, it's all coming down the pipe, and I think that people are gonna. The other campaign chapters coming real soon. So yeah, the story is getting better. So yeah, thank you to everyone for joining us on the stream. There'll be an archive of this on YouTube after we end the stream. I'm gonna cut to our trailer before I end the stream, and I will talk to everybody else on the Discord and online and the forums and everywhere else you can find us. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
See ya.